Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 235 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined once again by the cruiserweight / heavyweight prospect, the undefeated Mr. Hasim Jr. Hasim, welcome back on the show once again. How are you? I think you're on mute, Hasim.
You hear me, Joe?
Yeah, I got you now. Go on.
Okay, Joe, I said thank you for having me on the show again. I appreciate it. I really do.
No problem whatsoever. It is our show now. It would seem that way in recent weeks. Again, I'm just going to be honest with the listeners here. At this point, I'm not too sure if there is going to be an interview on this week's show, unfortunately. I'm not 1,000,000% sure, but like I say, we're still giving you content. We're still going to speak about a couple of topics once again this week that a lot of people will have a lot of different opinions on. Once again, those topics were sent in by the former two-time heavyweight world champion, Mr. Hasim Sr. Yeah, like I said, I just want to say we're kind of going in blind a little bit, not quite sure if there's going to be an interview. I do at some point want to discuss a funny boxing story that I don't think I've shared before on the podcast. I could be wrong, but yeah, there's a funny little story that happened to me about a year or so ago in boxing. It may be something that will entertain anyone that's listening. So I'll get onto that in due time. Let's start though with the first topic, Hasim. That first topic is: should fighters be banned for life when testing positive for PEDs? I'm going to let you start this time. It's always me that takes it away. I'll come to you first. What's your opinion on that?
I think that's a hard thing to deal with because everybody's not 100% good. So I think that there should be a limit. So if you test positive for performance-enhancing drugs more than 2 times, then yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to box because you've been warned. Okay, you got me once, you got me twice. All right, now 3 times is. I think if you get caught using performance-enhancing drugs more than twice, maybe even more than once. Maybe boxing should have a more than once rule. If you get caught twice, it's over. Because it's not always on the fighter. Sometimes the fighter goes into the fight, and it's more of the corner and the camp that's in the fight than the actual fighter. And people listen to their coaches, people listen to their trainers. They trust them with their lives, and everybody's not honest. So if fighters have been duped into using performance-enhancing drugs, I'm sure, and a lot of fighters have done it on purpose. But I don't think that the first time you get busted, you should be banned. But if it's a reoccurring thing, then yes, you shouldn't be able to compete because you're not a true competitor. You're a cheater.
And just to reiterate what you said there, you say the first time you shouldn't be banned. Do you mean banned for life? I mean, you should surely still receive some kind of ban.
Oh, yeah. No. You should definitely be punished. Yeah. You should definitely be punished, but I mean the ban for life.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's difficult, you know. It's a difficult one because, again, it kind of depends, in my eyes, on what's in your system, how much of it's in your system, and it's difficult because, again, it comes down to a situation where people are going to think different, but do you believe the guy? Do you believe the fighter? Of course, no one's going to come out and admit it, but there's cases where you've heard about people popping and you say, I don't think they've they've done that intentionally. But again, we don't really know what goes on behind closed doors. One case that just cannot be ignored, and he's a friend of the show. You know, we had a couple of good interviews back in the day. Big Baby Miller. You know, I'm under the belief that I think one of the PEDs he had in his system, there was no other way it could get in the body apart from being injected. Stuff like that. That's so blatant. But then, you know, he got a bit of a slap on the wrist. Really, you know, I think he served about 6 months, something like that, and then straight away without even fighting. I think he's been signed now by Top Rank. So that for me wasn't a fair punishment, you know. And there's other guys. There's a guy actually in the UK right now called Liam Cameron. I think he won the Commonwealth title. I think he was in line to fight for the British title. Good fighter. And I think he tested positive for like cocaine or something. I think he'd done something on a night out or whatever. And he's kind of been, you know, barged out of the sport really, because he doesn't have a big name. He doesn't have loads of money to hire top you know, lawyers and stuff like that. So he's really on the back burner, you know, and we see that with low-profile guys. Once they pop, it's very, very hard for them to make a return, even if it's something really little. But you know, like I say, I think 2 years is a nice punishment. I like that. Usually over here, anyway, there's a 2-year punishment, you know, for most of the time. But there can be even longer punishments. But yeah, you know. It's a tough one. Like I said, depends on what it is, how it got into your system, what your excuse is. But yeah, I think if you've been popped more than once, that for me, that should be a permanent ban, like you say, Hasim. I'm trying to think, is there anyone that's still boxing now that's been popped more than twice? I think obviously Dillian White, even though the second time has kind of been a little bit confusing because apparently he tested positive, then he didn't, and I'm not quite sure what's going on. It's really confusing, that one. But he's back to boxing, but you know, he definitely fouled the first time early on in his career before he linked up with Eddie Hearn, and he was out the ring for a while. And then yeah, you know, if the recent stuff was indeed another fouled substance, which again, it's so unclear because of the way it was all handled. He was fighting in Saudi Arabia. I'm not quite sure what's going on. Yeah, some people even think he could be serving a ban right now because he hasn't boxed in Britain. He's out of Britain's jurisdiction. Maybe there's a ban here. This coronavirus will be like music to his ears, you know.
Yeah.
there's a lot of theorists out there. It could be the case, you know. I really don't know. But yeah, you know, I'm trying to think. Is there anyone else perhaps that like Dillian has had a real ban, and then the second time round it's all been a little bit unclear? I'm just trying to think. Can you think of anyone, Hasim?
No, I can't think of anyone. The biggest case, obviously, recently is the Big Baby Miller case, but yeah. I can't think of anyone before that. Yeah, that's been popped more than once.
Okay, all right. So we both pretty much see eye to eye on that situation. Let's move on now to the second topic, the second and final topic we're going to discuss, and that being, should there be same-day weigh-ins so fighters won't have such a heavy advantage? This is where I'm going to kind of struggle to give a firm answer, really, Hasim. Obviously, the day before stuff is, you know, safer for the boxer, but not necessarily in every case their opponent. It's a difficult one.
It's a difficult one, but boxing has been around for a long time, and as long as I've been boxing or I've been watching boxing, the only same day stuff happens in there because I think the weigh-in the day before for the pros, they earn that, and you know, people know what they're getting themselves into when they step into the ring. Now, should there be a limit on how much weight you can put on after the weigh-in? Yes, they've already done that. But as far as same day weigh-ins, there's already enough going through a fighter's mind the night of the fight, the night before the fight, to be stressed out, which is gonna happen, to be stressed out, and like you said, it would be even a bigger danger
for fighters to be maintaining their weight and then fighting a couple hours later. I think that the day before weigh-ins should stay intact.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and just like I say, we've whizzed through a lot of what we were going to talk about very quickly. So I'm going to tell a little boxing story. Now, I wish I had enough stories that I could tell one this week, one the next week, etc., till the lockdown's over, but I don't think I've got enough stories in me. I told a story recently when Eddie was, I think, maybe last on the podcast. There was a time in January of this year, January 2020. I was out there in the States at the Clarissa Shields and Ivana Habazin fight, and we walked out to the ring, obviously in Ivana Habazin's corner. We walked out to the ring because Eddie was working her corner. So we all walk out to the ring, and then the fight takes place. Clarissa Shields wins the fight. And then when we go back into the, back in the dressing room, everyone got in apart from Eddie. The security actually stopped him and didn't believe he was part of the team. He was the one guy who couldn't get back in the dressing room. Yeah, he's the most known out of everyone, which was quite funny. But yeah, there's one story I'll go into here that I don't think I've mentioned on the pod before. It's a bit of a weird one. So I went to the Joe Joyce versus the American that was about 7 foot tall, Donnie Palmer. Do you know? You don't know Donnie Palmer at all, do you, Hasim? You know everyone else.
Oh yeah, I know Donnie.
Oh, you know him, yeah?
I know Donnie. Yeah.
All right. So obviously he came to the UK, boxed Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce took about 30 seconds to get rid of him, and I was there ringside for that. And on the way home, I'm going home via the train. And I'm on the train, I'm at like a really, busy, popular station in London called London Bridge Station. And anyway, I'm going up the escalator, up the escalators. And then, I'm dressed up. I've got my boxing media pass around my neck. And I could just feel this big figure watching me, staring at me. As I'm coming up the escalators, because it was quite busy. It's quite a busy station, and everyone's kind of facing forward. As you're going up the escalator, there's a guy in front of me that's purposely turned around, seen my pass, and he's staring at me. I can just feel him, a big guy, and I'm thinking, what is this guy looking at? Like, he's been doing this for about 20 seconds, and I haven't looked at him yet, but I can feel him looking at me, right? So, anyway, we're going up these escalators, and then I think, right, I'm going to have to look at him now because it's getting awkward. So I look at him, and then he looks at my pass, he goes, "What's this?" He's a big black guy. He goes, "What's this?" I said, I'm boxing media. I just went to this boxing event. And he went, "Oh, what happened?" And I said, Joe Joyce just beat this American in like 30 seconds. And he goes, yeah, okay. And he goes, what, so, you're big into boxing then, yeah? And I'm like, yeah, I'm big into it, yeah. And he goes, nah, you're not big into it. You don't know nothing about boxing. And I'm like, yeah, I do, Like, I do my podcast. I interviewed hundreds of fighters. Like, I'm bang into it. It's everything to me. And he's like, nah, you don't know nothing about boxing. If you knew about boxing, you'd know who I am. And I'm like, I know who you are. And I'm like, who are you then? And he goes, nah, see, I'm not telling you. If you knew about boxing, you'd know who I am. So I say, what's your name then? Tell me your name. If I recognize it, if you're someone, I should know who you are. So he says to me, Julius Francis. Again, I'm in this moment. I'm on an escalator. Like, this guy's been watching me. I'm not my sharpest thinking right now. And he says Julius Francis, and for a minute I go, hang on a minute. Yeah, you were involved in a big fight. Like, yeah, who did you fight? You were in a big fight. And then he just laughs at me, right? And I go, no, tell me, who did you fight? And he goes, Mike Tyson. And so, yeah, obviously, I don't know if you know this, Hasim, but he boxed Mike Tyson when Mike Tyson came to the UK in Manchester. And the famous thing about this fight is that one of the newspapers over here actually sponsored the soles of Julius Francis' boots.
Of the bottom of his feet.
That's right.
I remember that. And they tried to do the same thing to Danny Williams. You wouldn't let him.
So that's what happened. So yeah.
That's fucking. That's a good one.
Yeah. So it was him, and when I got home, kind of thing, because Julius Francis. I'm a young guy. Julius Francis. I don't know tons about him. I've never seen all of his fights and all that. He beat some good fighters and stuff like that. But I'm not a historian about people like that. And I was looking, at his career and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, okay, And then I went onto his Twitter page. I thought, I wonder if he's got Twitter. I went onto his Twitter page, and this is just where it gets really weird. He hasn't been on Twitter for about 3 years. The very last tweet on his page is a retweeted tweet of one of my tweets, and that was like, whoa, yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that was like, wow, how weird is that? So yeah, that's my little 5-minute boxing story, because at first I thought, who is this guy? I thought it was going to be trouble, and it ended in just craziness. Like I say, he was just walking around. We shook hands at the end when he went, but obviously a guy that retired and stuff like that didn't come away with loads of money, and to be honest, by the looks of what he was wearing, and I think he was carrying some bags from a supermarket. You would have never known it was him, a guy that shared the ring with Iron Mike Tyson. Unbelievable stuff. Hasim, I'm sure you've got some stories. I don't want to put you on the spot right now, but maybe over the next couple of weeks or whatever, we can you can sort of think of some, and I'm sure you've got some good stories that you can share with us at some point.
Yeah, no problem. All you got to do is tell me a fight, and I'll tell you the background on the fight. I mean, I've been to so many fights, not even just including my dad, but it's boxing is fun. It's dangerous, it's fun, and we all love it. So I make great out of every time I go to a fight. I pretty much got a story. So it's boxing has definitely been a whirlwind.
Absolutely. This is why we love the sport. It's the sport that doesn't really have any official rules, and the man off the street, even if they've been a boxing fan for years, doesn't really know what's going on and who's going to end up fighting who, because it's so non-straightforward. That's why I love it. It's a mystery. The
theater of the unpredictable.
That's a brilliant little phrase there. I remember Don King saying something before, which is a quote that has always been the case. He said, in boxing, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate, and that's 100% right. Like I say,
I like that.
Non-predictable sport. So I remember another time when I was walking Eddie Chambers to the ring when he boxed over here on the Fury Chisora 2 undercard, where we walked to the ring and something was up with the music system, so there was no song, so we walked to the ring in silence. That was another one. But there's some good ones. I'm sure you've got some really good ones, Hasim. So we'll perhaps hear the first of many on next week's show. But like I say, even though we've come to the very end of the talking now, we've discussed the boxers on PED situation. We've discussed the situation about same-day weigh-ins. I've given you my little story there. I'm going to try and think if there's any others I can dig up. I have managed to secure a guest, and I'm going to bring him in just a moment. But once again, this week's show is something we've done pretty much off the cuff and unprepared. We've given you, though, something to listen to regardless, and I hope you've enjoyed it thus far. But with no further ado, let's welcome our sole guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning WBO Super-Featherweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Jamel Herring. Jamel, welcome back on the show, my brother.
Hey, what's going on, man? Great to be back. It's great to be back, and there's a lot to speak about.
There's a lot to speak about. Obviously, it's been a difficult period for everyone during this whole coronavirus situation. Even myself, I've had a lot of trouble getting interviews done, to be honest, because no one really knows when their next fight's going to be, who it will be against, where it will be, and even myself, I don't really want to get people on the show just for the sake of it with no real substance behind it. But as you know, you're one of my favourite people in boxing, and when I realised we hadn't even spoke since before your last fight, it was a no-brainer to get you back on the show. How are you anyway, my man?
I'm doing great. I mean, I'm always in good spirits, man. Like I said, it's always good to speak with you, man. I consider you a friend, so it's good to speak with you. Even though we didn't do an interview before that, but we did get to see each other for the Clarissa Shields belt. So we gotta include that. But I mean, like you said, you can hear it in my voice, man. I'm doing really well. You know, even though, like you pointed out, a lot of fighters can't really say when they're gonna fight. You can always call on me, man, because we can always just speak boxing and we can speak on the future.
Absolutely, and that's something we definitely have to do in the future at some point. So like I say, Jamel, we last spoke back in October. It was just before your first defense of your world title against the undefeated Lamont Roach Jr. Talk me through that fight, Jamel, in your own words, and obviously feel free to go in as much detail as you like.
I felt it was a good performance. It wasn't the greatest, you know. Like I said, I got caught with a good one in the 11th, but like a true champion, of course, I bounced back. But it was more of a in honesty, if you look at it, it was more of a chess match, more of a sometimes a cat and mouse, because you know Lamont is a defensive fighter. It wasn't like with the Ito fight, where you know Ito was more the aggressor. So of course he take chances and for the opening. Whereas with Lamont, you know, he was trying to be more precise with his punches, and you know he was on the back foot a lot. So it was more of a, you know, it's actually more of a slower pace than the Ito fight, of course. But overall, it was a good experience because you have to, as a champion, you're going to come across styles that you may not be accustomed to at times. So you'll have to be ready for, you know, well, at least train for each and every style that's placed in front of you. But I thought it was a good outing. I got to keep my title, of course, and here we are. And like I say, a brilliant first offense there. A worrying moment in the 11th. I was actually terrified as well when that shot landed. Yeah. It was a good one.
It was a good one. But obviously the main reason, again, that I hadn't invited you back on the show since then is because I was waiting for the official announcement for you to fight Carl Frampton. Obviously the announcement never actually was official. There was lots of rumoured dates, but nothing was actual concrete. Then obviously the whole pandemic came around. But tell us, Jamel, what is the latest with the situation? Obviously you're not sure when it's going to be, but what can you tell us anyway?
I can pretty much tell you that the fight will happen, of course. I'm not walking away from it at all. The only issue that I'm worried about the fight, and it's crazy because, you know, even though I'm going in at, you know, in basically enemy territory, I can't tell you right now if the fight will happen in Belfast, because if you look what they're saying around the world, they're not sure if they're going to be having fights in the venues with fans now. So that's the only thing I'm not too keen on. I know the fight will happen. They're still pushing for the summertime, of course, but the only issue is we don't know if the fight is going to be in closed venues now where the fans can't view it personally. So that's the only thing that I really don't know what's going on about, man.
It's obviously a difficult situation. Like I say, we're still so unclear. What's the situation right now in the States? Because over here, like in London, I don't really know what's going on in Northern Ireland, where you know the fight was proposed to take place. But in London, flights are still coming in every day. Like we're still, you know, we haven't even shut the doors. Flights still coming into to the US at the minute, or?
I believe there are flights within the U.S. I know, but I don't know if they're allowing flights from basically overseas. Other countries that's coming in. Like borders is pretty much still shut down. But I know we still have a lot of flights going around the country as a whole. But at the same time, there are flights still being canceled within the U.S. So, like I said, man, it's still kind of crazy, especially like where I'm from in New York. It's really bad with the coronavirus situation. It's gotten to the point where I believe they've the public has been ordered. They're not allowed to come out unless they're wearing basically face masks and everything like that. So yeah, man, it's still wild. So it just like it all like truthfully with the U.S. it all depends on what part of the country you're speaking about. But I know for a fact that a lot of flights are still being canceled or and things of that nature.
And like I say, before this whole thing came about, I feel like you were under the impression that the fight would end up taking place in Belfast.
Right.
The fight, should it happen, well, it will happen, but when it does happen, is it likely to still be in Belfast, you feel?
That's the thing. That's the whole thing with the issue. Because if you honestly look at it from the business aspect, bro, like if we can have a fight where fans are in attendance, I think they'll dismiss the whole idea of going to Belfast, because the point of going to Belfast is not because it was Carl Frampton's his hometown, but it was going to be a huge event in a huge arena for the fans. It all came down mainly for the fans, and if we can't get the fans in venues, I think they're like Bob Allen is talking about moving fights into smaller venues where it's just closed off from the public, man.
Okay, now I understand completely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Being honest, Jamel, I know you like a challenge. Obviously, that goes without saying. Just look at the type of person you are. But how would you prefer it? I mean, at the end of the day, the most important thing is holding on to the world title. That's a simple fact. Would you prefer to go to if it was up to you? Would you prefer to be able to go to Belfast and have the fight in front of all those fans, or being selfishly honest, would you prefer it in the US where you don't have to travel, where you've got the advantage slightly?
I mean, I of course you will always wanted to be home on your grounds, of course. I think that's with any fighter. But I was actually excited and looking forward to coming to Belfast because for the most part, you know me, man. I'm all about the fans. Even if the majority of the fans, if they're rooting against me, it would have been a history making fight because we know Carl is vying to be, he's trying to be a three division champion, trying to make history in his own right. Not more importantly, not every world champion can say they fought in a football arena. So that's the main reason why I was looking forward to the fight. I wanted to be a part of something big. I wanted to be a part of history. Of course, I was going in there fully confident I would get the win. But that's why I didn't mind where the fight was at. Yeah, and me being from New York, of course I would want it in Madison Square Garden. But when Top Rank and everyone said that it would make sense in Belfast, I didn't argue with it at all. I didn't make a fuss about it. I didn't act like a diva. I was all for it.
And something that surprised me earlier today when I was reading a press release was that the press release said something along the lines of Carl Frampton wasn't as impressed as others when you and him stood next to each other in the ring and we saw the size difference. He branded you as lazy. He said that you were out of shape, and he estimated that you, if you'd got on the scales at that moment, you'd have weighed 12 stone, which for the American listeners, the quick translation, I guess is the word I'm looking for, in pounds at least,
right,
would literally be 168, the super middleweight limit. What was your reaction to that when I synced with earlier, Jamel?
I think, in all honesty, I don't take offense to it. I actually take that stuff as a compliment in terms of the weight and things of that nature. But I never, I have a nutritionist who you probably see right now going back and forth on my Twitter because she takes that stuff to offense because she had never allowed me to get over 155 pounds. And to be honest, I don't think I've even seen in my lifetime 155 pounds on the scale. So, that goes to show you, man, I'm a big dude for the weight, but I'm never out of shape. We all know that. I mean, since you know me, man, in between fights, I'm always working out. I've never came across where I have a gut or whatever you want to call it. And I just take that as a way he has to psych himself into believing that he has a chance, I guess. It's part of the fight game. I guess I don't know if he's trying to psych himself into it or if he's trying to do some self-promoting and build a fight or whatever. But I never jump out of character. I have nothing disrespectful to say, but I think that just motivates me because I feel like they're worried about something. And like I said, weight is the last thing to worry about. And the whole thing that, being lazy in the fight, I fight at my own pace. I mean, in the Ito fight, I fought at a fast pace because Ito kept coming. In the Roach fight, like I said, it was more of a chess match, so I had to be more calculated. But, when you look back, when I fought John Vincent Moralde, I had to chase Moralde around the ring all 10 rounds, and I beat him 10 rounds to nothing. That whole entire fight to the point where his team actually wanted to quit. They wanted him to stop the fight. The commission wanted to stop the fight on the stool, I believe, in the 7th round because he was taking so much of a beating. So that goes to show you, it doesn't matter what people say. I know I can adjust to whatever style is put in front of me. I give Carl all the respect in the world. But I think at this point, he's just in over his head because, no one has ever seen me say anything disrespectful about Carl Frampton or even Frank Warren. Frank Warren picks at me every 2 days or so. But I've never gotten out of character because I know what I'm capable of, and I know what I'm going to do when the time for when the fight comes.
And like I say, anyone that's been listening to this podcast for long enough knows the admiration I have for yourself, Jamel. Obviously, a brilliant thing. In September of last year, someone tweeted on Twitter saying, tag someone you'd like to meet. And at the time, of course, I tagged Jamel, and then 4 months later, like you say, it happened at Atlantic City at that Shield Habazin fight. I think it took you about 10 seconds to realise who I was, which slightly broke my heart, but it was good to get a picture.
I seen the shirt, yeah. I seen the shirt. I had to match it up. I know that shirt because I had that shirt, but yeah, man, it took a quick second. Then I heard when you started doing when you spoke, I knew off the bat. The accent. There we go. But man, like I said, we had a great time that night. It was great seeing you, man. Like we spoke like we've known each other our whole lives, and like I said, it was just a good feeling. But yeah, man, like that's the reason why I was like interested in even going over there, because I get like people like you. I get a lot of love and support from others on that side of the pond as well. So that's the reason why I didn't have an issue, because though it's his backyard, I still have a fan base over there as well. It may not be the biggest, but at least I have some love and support over there that I'm happy, that I'm grateful of. And I was more than ready to go over there and just have a good time.
Not only that, but the people of Northern Ireland as well. I think they appreciate good people. And I remember when Nonito Donaire came over to fight Carl Frampton. Nonito Donaire is another guy like yourself that you just can't help but like. So, he received a fantastic reception. Everyone loved him when he was over here. And I think you'd probably get the same kind of reception from the Northern Ireland fight fans.
Yeah.
Again, since we last spoke, Jamel, Joseph Diaz beat Tevin Farmer. I'm sure you watched it. What did you make of that fight? Obviously, another champion now in your weight division.
Another champion, and also one of my Olympic teammates. So once again, congrats to Jojo Diaz. I'm also a good friend of Tevin Farmer. I was actually more surprised at what was going on, because at points in the fight, Tevin looked like he wasn't himself. And there's nothing to take away from Jojo, because Jojo did what he had to do as a fighter. And at the end of the day, Jojo had to fight with a huge cut over his eye from basically the first round to the 12th round. So you got to give Jojo his respect for that. He didn't let it knock him off course on what the real goal was. But it just that I seen like at times Tevin just wasn't himself. He was like he was pushing up his shot. He seemed sluggish. His timing was off. But Jojo got mean and vicious in there, and he did what he had to do.
Yeah, you're right there about the cut. I don't know who Jojo Diaz cut man is, but unbelievable what he did to that cut. It was like he put a spell on it. It was perfect after it initially opened. Again, another guy since we last spoke that now holds a belt. Leo Santa Cruz obviously moved up. Is he a potential opponent for you, or do you see politics ruling that one out?
Oh yeah, I definitely would love to fight Leo Santa Cruz, because Leo, like Carl, had a lot of credentials under his belt. That's the reason why I wanted to fight Carl Frampton, because I give him the respect. Carl, in my opinion, could potentially be a future Hall of Famer because of what he's done in the sport of boxing. I mean, if you look at it, I think it was 2015, Carl was the fighter of the year. So, you can't take another away from him. But like he pointed out in the beginning of the interview, I love to challenge myself. So I'm not looking for the easy route. You knew after I beat Ito, that I wanted to fight the best in the division, which was Miguel Berchelt. So I never, wanted to duck anybody. I never said no to a challenge. But as you've seen over time, it was kind of hard for me to even get these fights. And that's why I give Carl still the respect, because he actually stepped up to the fight, even though the first time we met when I stepped in the ring with him. So he probably was like, oh, I didn't think he was this big. But, here we are now. And like I said, if all goes well with the Frampton fight, of course I would love to fight Santa Cruz next, if possible.
And I'm going to throw a tough question your way now, Jamel. When we last spoke, I'm pretty sure I asked you who you favoured if we got to see that 147 super fight between Crawford and Spence. I remember you sitting on the fence. I think it was just the week after we spoke that Spence obviously had that awful car crash. We're all eager to see how he looks in his next fight and all that. I'm sure, you're a friend of his. I'm sure you probably spoke since then and all that. But we're in quarantine. We're all a little bit bored. Have you budged at all? Are you still sitting on the fence?
Sure, man. I'm just trying to make the most of what I can from this quarantine. But I'm definitely not. I'm looking forward to hopefully big fights being made after the whole quarantine because we lost so much time in the boxing world. I don't think we should waste any more time. So like what you mentioned with guys like Errol Spence and Bud Crawford, hopefully that's a fight that can be made. I believe that this quarantine time is actually doing right for Errol because it gives his body still more time to heal after the accident. So I'm grateful to see that, he's making the most of his time just to let his body heal some more and get back into things. But, man, oh, man, I just can't wait just to see somebody, somebody touch gloves again.
Fence it. I'll let you off, Jamel. You like to sit on that fence when it comes to those two.
Oh, yeah. You know what I mean, man. I love them both. Shout out to Errol Spence Jr. Shout out to Terrence Bud Crawford. I love you both. I love you guys both, man. But may the best man win.
No, I know the type of guy you are. Listen, if it was me fighting Anthony Joshua, I think you'd sit on the fence as well. Closing words, Jamel. If you've got any message before I let you go. Obviously,
I have to say this. Because I know I don't talk much on him, but I have to give credit to my guy Archie Sharp.
Okay.
And I say this because I watch everything. I may not say nothing, but I do pay attention to everything that goes on, especially in my division. And I know I believe it was like probably about a week ago or so. Well, Archie's been saying it for a while, but Archie is smart. Like when he looks at the fight between me and Frampton, of course, he has a lot of respect for Frampton, but he sees it for what it is, and I say the same thing. There's nothing against Carl Frampton, but I believe at times he's in over his head about things like you could say this or that about me being slow on the foot, but at the end of the day, I'm a southpaw. I'm the longer man. I can box. I have an Olympic pedigree, and those things it's not going to be easy night for Carl is what he may think it is at times. Even taking out the factor of the weight, it's still going to be a tough fight for Carl. But I give Archie Sharp. I give him credit because he's never said anything like really disrespectful. He's just a guy, who wants to, of course, like I was in the same boat. He just wants to fight for the world title. So I can't knock that, but trust and believe, I pay attention to everybody in the division, and I'm keeping notice on everybody who's climbing up the ladder.
Yeah, I think Archie's ranked number 3 now in the rankings. But yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think he's even sparred Carl in the past. Obviously, I'm guessing they must have some kind of degree of professional relationship because of that stuff. Obviously, he's never met you. He'd probably be in his best interest, especially over here, to come out and say, when asked who'd win the fight between you and Carl, to come out and say Carl. But no, he's openly said he thinks that you're going to be
and
Carl.
Exactly, and I give him that respect. And that's why I give him that respect because most time you think because they're from around the same area at least, you think that of course he will root for for him, but no, he's being honest and saying for what it is. But at the end of the day, I still got to go in there and do what I got to do. I can't take Carl Frampton lightly because, like I said, he has if one thing Carl has over me is experience, and I give him that. He has a lot more experience over me because he's been in more world title fights than I have. But I feel like I'm still the hungrier fighter because Carl Frampton's legacy is pretty much cemented anyway. Either he wins or loses, it's pretty much cemented. In terms of me, I still feel like I have a lot more to prove, and that's what keeps me hungry and sharp.
Absolutely, and like I say, just closing words, Jamel, if you've got anything to say just before I let you go. As always, I like to, throw the microphone, so to speak, over to you if you've got any closing words for our listeners.
I just want to say, thank you all for the love and support. I appreciate everyone over there, whether they're rooting for me or not, because at the same time, they're all pushing and they're all craving for this fight. And it's like at the end of the day, without the fans, we can't get these huge moments that us fighters we crave for. So I just want to say thank you all out there. Thank everyone out here in the States as well. And if anyone wants to reach out to me to speak more about the fight or just speak boxing, they can hit me up at Jamel Herring on Twitter or Instagram, and I'll be more than welcome, more than gladly to speak boxing.
Absolutely. Thank you once again, Jamel, for coming on this week's show. It's nothing but a pleasure every time we speak. Thank you for your time. I hope we get to see the Frampton fight sooner rather than later. And, of course, I hope we can speak again real soon.
For sure, man. It's always great speaking to you, brother, man. Take care of yourself out there and just be safe.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 235 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Hasim Jr has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive thank you to our sole guest on this week's podcast, the reigning WBO Super-Featherweight World Champion, Jamel Herring. Once again, no news to discuss, no review, no preview. We were supposed to go through our best fighter from each division, down from welterweight, but we kind of forgot to do it until after we finished recording. But don't worry, we're going to do that for sure on next week's podcast. Once again, if you have any topics you'd like to suggest for us to discuss on next week's show, send them over to us on Twitter. If you do get a chance, please leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you all for listening. More importantly, remember to stay safe and wash your hands, and we shall see you all again next week.